You're listening to the Practical Wealth Show with Curtis May, putting you in the driver's seat to control your finances. Let's start the Practical Wealth Talk about alternatives to Wall Street.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Practical Wealth Show. And this is Curtis May. And today we have a special guest on. This gal talks credits, Almitra Tankersly. And what we're going to talk about today is 5 things to do in business to not fail before you start. And one of the things that we're going to talk about is having access to capital, which hurts a lot of people, and then, kind of things that set yourself up to make yourself bankable. So I want to welcome Almitra to the show. Say hi.
Hi, how are you?
Fantastic. Happy to have you on. Tell our listeners a little about your journey and, what you're up to.
I want to start off by saying how I even got that little subject underneath my name, This Gal Talks Credit. I'm actually a part of a huge family that's from the South, and most of the time when we did our home visits and we went down and stayed for the summer, my uncle and my auntie would say, "Gal, come on over here." So that's how that whole gals thing came about. And so I figured if anyone could not pronounce my name, which, my father gave me my first and my husband my last, they are 2 difficult names to say, I think, all in one. So I said, you know what? If they can't get that part, just remember that this gal talks credit. So let's just put that out. I think when it comes to credit, Curtis, you and I have had numerous conversations where we talk about credit being such a heavy-weighted topic. And most of the time when it comes to credit, when you say that word, most people either throw up a ice wall or they quickly want to change the subject because 9 times out of 10, they either have a bad credit score profile or something happened to them where they just want to get rid of that whole experience in their life and not have to talk about it ever again. So, and that's with professionals alike. I mean, I normally come across a lot of professionals who do make 6 figures or more, or small business owners who bring in $1 million in revenue annually, and they still have the same story as those that are earning way less than $50,000 a year. So I know someone that's probably listening right now, Curtis, is saying, how can that be? Like, I make $30,000 or $40,000, and all I need is $20,000 more in my salary annually, and I would be great. And I know you and I have both heard that, but the case is that is not the case. When you make more zeros and you add more commas in your income, it comes with, they say, more money, more problems. We live in a country where, yes, they tell us that we can, buy now and get everything now, and we'll talk about the expense later. And because of that, our country is built on debt, okay? Right now, we're facing the possible bubble of the school loans that's going to pop one day. I mean, it's $1 trillion debt, and no one is talking about it, just like when the foreclosure market was slowly creeping up on everybody, and no one wanted to talk about it. I know for a fact that even though 2007, 2008 is when everybody kind of, came to grips that, yeah, it's a foreclosure market, but I beg to differ because I was actually caught up in it. It was around 2004, 2003 is when we started noticing some weird changes with, lending, because it seemed like they were giving everybody a loan, even with a 500 credit score.
Yeah. I was doing mortgages then. Exactly. Yeah.
Credit score is like a 550, and they're like, hey, I got a $300,000 home. I'm good.
They're going to call you and just say you make, $50,000 a year. So there's no income verification. And, I know this guy was a dishwasher. They'll just say you make this, and then they would just verify it, and boom, they would give them $250,000 to buy a house. I was like, okay. So let's talk, because one of the things that I fear when I start sharing with people ideas on credit, so I want to kind of build a caveat around that. So if you're going into business, the first thing you need to do is make money. Well, first of all, you need to have access to credit because our system is based on debt. So literally, if you don't have access to other people's capital, you can't win. But you need to be a good steward of your money. So like if you're in business, first thing you need to do is you need to sell something. Like you need to make sure that you have a business, that you have revenue, and you need to grow from revenue, because people want money to start a business. I remember Mark Cuban said, listen, if you're borrowing money to start a business, you're a moron, because the only thing that's constant in that business is the debt service, right? You know what I mean? You need to be ready for that, but you need to have revenue because you have to service that debt. So I wanted to bring this up because, what the bank wants to know is, can you pay me back? So you need to have a solid personal and business economy so that you can prove to that you can do that, so you can handle it, good cash reserves, because, if it's the difference between being in debt and having debt, right? I told people my goal, as I frame this talk, is I want people to be creditors and not debtors. And what I mean by that is, if you borrow $50,000 and you don't have any money, you're in debt, right? And you're using future earnings as collateral. All right. And that's what they're loaning you money against. But let's say because I focus on getting people saving and building up money and building their capital up. If you've got $50,000 in cash in cash accounts, if you heard previous podcasts, we talk about your private reserve or your private banking system. Well, now if you've got collateral or real estate or whatever, you're now, and let's say that's worth $100,000 and you get $50,000 of debt. Well, you have debt, but you're not in debt because you have more assets than you have liabilities. And so what you want to be able to do is you want to look good. Like, banks loan money to people that don't need it, right? And so that is building a creditor, saving money, getting a strong personal and business economy, and then building on that so that now you can accelerate what you're already doing with access to other people's money. So now, what are the 5 things that people do to screw themselves up that that we can share with them to kind of make sure they're getting on the right path from the door?
Yes, yes. And you know what? I want to preface my conversation with you. You mentioned something about debt. You said there's good debt and there's bad debt. And so I've heard, I want to beg to differ, because I'm hearing now is, all debt is bad debt. Like you said, you want to be the lender, not the borrower, and all those other things. But I'll just say that borrowing is a necessary evil. Okay. If you want to buy a house, you got to probably take out a loan. If you want to buy even a decent car, you still may need to take out a loan. And we darn sure know that if you want to go to college, especially an Ivy League school, or an average school, you're going to have to do the necessary evil of borrowing. So, but when it comes to your businesses, I think this is the crossroads for a lot of people. We have a very high stat, and you can Google it, that new businesses normally will fail within, they usually say 1 to 5 years, but it's now pushed to 7 to 10 years. And so we kind of need to pay attention to those stats and figure out why. And I know we can come up with a lot of answers, but I will talk about the first 5 that usually kind of hinders a person's progress and even getting beyond the profit margins that they're comfortable with, to say, hey, I really can go all in, or I can, invest other dollars to make this bigger. And so those 5 things that we'll talk about is, and there's actually 10, Curtis, but for the sake of this conversation, we're going to talk about 5, and we'll give them resources, your listeners, resources, how they can be able to continue the other 5 and, really get 27 checkpoints to make your business credible and bankable.
That sounds fantastic. Let's do it.
The first 5 I'll start off with the business name. Most people are so excited that they even came up with an idea, of course, of their business idea, and they might just slap their personal name on it, right? And they're like, hey, this is my business, and they would put an LLC behind it, or incorporation, or whatever they come up with, okay? I will say that a lot of times, professionals, even depending on what industry they're in, for instance, practicing law or medicine, they may have to use their name. But when it comes to sole proprietorships and partnerships, that is a very, very dangerous platform to be on, because you are always going to be the personal guarantor when it comes to getting funding. So for our listeners that don't understand what a personal guarantor is, or known as PG, not the movie rating, but PG stands for, is an acronym for personal guarantor. And that means that you're going to personally guarantee everything that business needs. Okay? So that means that if you go and borrow $5 and you decide to pay late on that $5, then you personally guarantee that particular $5 loan, and it's going to go down on record. Okay, and on record means it will go down usually on your personal credit score or personal credit report. Okay, the other thing is that if you're trying to really separate yourself from your business, meaning make yourself a second entity or a second identity. Let's give yourself a dual personality, so to speak. Okay, we know everybody knows Beyonce has two personalities. She has what did she call herself? Sasha Fierce. Well, in this case, you can have two identities. It is you, and then it is your business. If you think about a lot of businesses out here that make a lot of money, for instance, what is Verizon? What is a Comcast? You know, you already know by association what those services are. If a person was like a foreigner altogether, just born yesterday, and they looked at Verizon, Verizon's not going to actually tell you what it is. You got to kind of figure it out, or someone has to educate you on that. And so there's a science behind that to really show you that it's its own entity, okay? And you don't know who owns Verizon. Who owns Verizon, by the way? I don't know. I can't call offhand. We have to Google it. Who owns Comcast? Okay, these are all different, type of entities. I know I kind of stuck within the same service, Verizon and Comcast. I don't know why I stuck with those two. They're service providers for cable and phone. But the point of what I'm trying to make is that these names that come up should be something that you would really have to explain what it is. Okay, so when you decide to do that, that is the best thing to do. Unless you're like a Oprah or Donald Trump or whomever is a big name brand, their name is their brand, they can really stand on their own. But God forbid if they should mess up their name, you can't get rid of your name unless you start all over and, you go to the IRS and change your name there and get a whole new social, that whole rigmarole. Because I know a lot of people, especially your listeners, may have did their own research online or YouTube and said, I can start my own new identity, But the point is that you only have one name. If you're going to keep it until you go, until you leave this earth, you have one name. In a sense, if you have a business name that no one knows what it is, or, it's not truly associated with you per se, if, for God forbid, your business hits the fan, everything burns up and goes up in flames, you could always open another business the following week. Okay, perfect example is Wachovia. When Wachovia went to crap, guess who picked it up? Wells Fargo. So no one even really remembers Wachovia. Okay, it's a couple of banks out here that a lot of people are not even thinking about anymore. But these bank names are just bank names, and no one knows who owns what. Okay, that's what I want to start off with is, the name. When you think about your name, you want to put some effort into it, okay? The other thing is that they don't do the research on the name. So if you really are in love with, truly in love with that name, you want to go to a site that will handle trademarks and copyrights and just do the search. It's for free, okay? You can actually go there and type in the name and see if the name is even available. And sometimes you might find that the name is available, but that's just a generic way to find out, to really go in depth and make sure that there's no conflicts out there on the Commonwealth level as well as the state level. You may need to invest $1 or $2. Okay, so for instance, my company, Credit Fitness, it is a very, very vague name, but it came across a lot of other similarities. And so I had to invest a few $1,000s actually to have a lawyer, a trademark lawyer that actually did the thorough process of making sure that that name was good to go. So if I ever wanted to do any marketing, whether it be by radio, internet, social media, whatever you think of, I was protected. Okay, I was zealous. I was excited. And when I went out on my, continuing education seminars, I was handing out my business cards. And of course, my business card had my name, Credit Fitness, and it was not protected. And so twice somebody tried to trademark our company's name. So it took me 2 years to get that back. And so many thousands of dollars later, I look back and I said, only if I wasn't so overzealous, I may have not had to spend that much money. The best lessons sometimes are, to go through that. So that way you do have your stripes and your stars earned. Okay.
Okay, so step one is put some thought into your name and separate your personal from your business.
Yes, and also the other way to make sure that you're going to be bankable, as I mentioned, sole proprietorships as well as partnerships, they do not work so much in the sense of being bankable. Now, yes, you can build credit for your sole proprietorship or your partnership, but again, you're not separating yourself. You will be the personal guarantee, meaning they're always going to look at your personal credit. So if you have a personal credit score or a personal credit profile that's not so good, meaning a 685 FICO score or better, then chances are you're probably not going to get the best rates or be denied altogether. So to set yourself up for success, you want to make sure that you at least register your company as an LLC, an LLC, an LLP, or a incorporation. Now, I'm not a tax accountant or tax advisor of any sort, so I'm not giving any legal advice, of course. I would hope that your listeners would have someone already on their payroll in their team that can provide these professional services, so that way they can ask those crucial questions as to how should I establish my entity in that sense.
Right. Business is a team sport.
Yes, it is. And that's one of the good reasons of why you should be able to, have a plan of action once you get borrowed money to get these people on your team. Not just buy stuff, but get people that can actually help you keep more of the money that you borrow and to help you to get those profits in quicker to pay off those debts.
Exactly. What's number two?
Okay, so number two is the business address. And I have a feeling we're probably not going to be able to finish all five, so they'll have to tune in later, Curtis. But the business address, I don't know if I want to put it as the most important before the business name, but I guess it's a tie. So business addresses, most people say, oh, I use my personal address, whether it be residential, their apartment, or a P.O. box for those that say, I want a little privacy, or a U.S. mail room, or now even I saw UPS, they are offering office addresses that has market it as a real street address. But the problem with that is that if you are running out to get your wonderful business established and you sign up with your residential address, they will allow you, and when I say they, the registration will allow you to do that. But when you're trying to become bankable, that residential address is not going to work for any bank. It'll be an automatic decline. And the banking industry does not have to give you a decline letter and tell you the reason why you were declined. So here you're thinking you did something wrong and you tried to dot every I and cross every T, but it was the address that would have gotten you a decline. Now, I know someone's probably listening and saying, well, why would a P.O. box not work? Or why would a U.S. mailroom not work? The reason for that is because if you are a professional, okay, and this is in the banking's eyes, if you're a professional, a real business owner would already be well educated to know that those are not real addresses. They're not real brick and mortars for that business, because what they do is a search. And so if you put your application in with that residential address, with that P.O. box or U.S. mailroom or UPS address, when they do that Google search or whatever the software they use, they're going to pull up that actual location where your P.O. box is located and know that's a United States Post Office or that's a UPS room. And so automatically, you've already shot yourself in the foot. So how many of your listeners are probably like shaking their head right now like, okay, I guess I goofed this one up, right?
Right. Uh-huh.
There are services that actually provide a better way, like you can keep, like, because I know someone's probably going to run out and say, okay, scratch everything, just clear the table and start over. So before they do that, salvage what you've already done, because your work does mean a lot. And you never want to discourage yourself, because that would make you a part of the statistic of, most business failing between 7 to 10 years. So salvage what you have, and you can utilize other services out there that can camouflage your actual address. And there's a specific way that you have to camouflage it, especially if you're not able to go out and rent commercial property or, rent an office space.
All right. So So what we're going to do now is we're going to move to step 3. And so, Almitra, what's step 3?
So yeah, step 3 is basically what I just touched on in step 1, which is your entity, making sure that your business is registered in a way where it is completely separated from you. So as I said before, I'm not a tax accountant or a tax preparer, but anyone that's in that field with that background should be the way a person gets their information, because that way they can get the true advice that's legal, and that way they're actually able to, establish their entity in the way that will work best for them and their business.
Right. Yeah. Just don't do it out of a box, because there's two sides of it. There's a legal side, and then there's a tax side of the entity. And I think they should be in communication because there's different sides to the business. But what we're talking about from this standpoint is that you need to have that because you're trying to build a real thing. Because the business, like I teach people, your number one asset in your portfolio is the business. So you need to start treating it like the asset that it is trying to throw off income, because especially as you do an entity, LLC or a corporation, it is its own person. And so you have to operate like that. Yeah.
Yeah, so you wouldn't want to treat a person wrong. If it was another you would not want to treat yourself bad, even though I know it's a lot of people that treat themselves bad, but
right. Because it's a clone of you, right? It's a clone of you. That's kind of what you're doing.
And actually, it's not even a clone. It's actually an exponential level of you, because of the sky is really not the limit. It's outer space, because the funding that you can get your hands on when it comes to a business entity with those different letters behind your name other than your surname, you are able to get funding beyond what your annual income is. On your personal side, the banks are going to go by what you make per year. How can you pay them back? That's why you have to do an application. So in the business sense, there are so many other variables that exist for you to be able to build credit on top of credit on top of credit. Okay, so like for instance, I used the example of Walmart. Walmart has over 500 credit lines, and not because it's just Walmart, it's because they understood that in order to be the number one retailer in the world, you have to be able to use other people's money and not your own profits to grow your business. And so when you walk into Walmart and you see the fluorescent lighting and you see, those aisles are filled with product, know that the next time you're in that store, if you frequent that store, if you're in the toilet paper aisle, that if you pick up the toilet paper, trust me, they have a line of credit with Scott tissue, and they filled their stock shelves with that. And so when you go to the register to pay, you paid their credit card bill. Okay, so that's how that works. But the entity is most important. So yes, I do advise your listeners to go to the professional that can provide that information, because you're right, it is a legal side and it is a tax side, and we're not, I'm not going to share that information, even though I know a little something, but that would not do them justice. So they definitely need to get that professional that handles that. That should lead us to number 4.
Right. We both know a little bit, enough to be dangerous. So I was like, all right, here we go. I'm at the edge. Let me make an introduction. Right.
Yes, just enough. Okay, so I think we're moving on to step 4. Step 4 is also just as important as all the other steps, but when it comes to you establishing your business profile separate from yourself, that means your phone number too. I have met so many business owners who are using their cell phone numbers as their point of contact for the business, meaning the primary contact. And you might find that it's harmless because you'll say, well, everybody has a cell phone. You're right. Everybody does have a cell phone. But in a sense of business etiquette, you are supposed to have a business number. Now, I've had people that said, well, Almitra, I have cell phones that are in the business name. That's fine and good too. But in the sense of being bankable, okay, because that's what the topic is, being bankable and failing at getting money or funding for your business. So if you have something that's related to you personally per se, okay, then you are running that risk of being declined because you provided a cell phone number. as well as those who are using a residential line. Okay, so residential lines don't work. The cell phone numbers don't work, and I'm quite sure someone is saying, well, what about a Google number? How about that? I have a Google number. Well, I will say this. I'm glad that you have a Google number, because at least that is something that you can start with, okay? A Google number is considered what we know to be a voice over IP, or, VoIP, as I've heard people say. But voice over IP is going to allow you to at least camouflage your cell phone, your home number. People started using that as a privacy situation to cover their private information with their cell phone or their home number. But in actuality, they can use that Google number. It is free. The only downside to that is, people are going to hear you've reached a Google subscriber. So if the bank calls and they're not able to, per se, get someone to pick up their phone to verify that you are the owner of this company, or you work at this company, chances are they're going to know that this is not a real number either. So that is one of the reasons why I don't really push for people to go out and get a Google number, because it is a chance you run that risk. I mean, you know how they say, oh, it just had to be that one day that this happened, and they got the Google Voice answer machine. So, yeah, there are other services out here that provide voice over IP. I've seen them all. Like, just make sure that your number, whether it be residential or a cell phone number, is camouflaged, okay? So that's half the battle. The second half of that battle is getting yourself registered with 411. Now, I thought it was easy to just register yourself with 411 or pay a service, to get that done. But in actuality, when you're trying to do things for free, everything that's free is not always cracked up to what it needs to be. So you have to be very cautious on how you do it, but it is not cheap. It is an expensive service to get yourself registered with a company. So you might say, well, what's the point of registering? Well, again, if you're filling out an application to borrow money, whether it be even a small credit card, okay, and I say small, anything under $10,000 to me is considered small. So, if you are going out to get an unsecured line of credit, even a secured card, for your business, these things are required. So if the bank goes to push your application through an underwriting, and they do a search on your phone number and find out that they can't find you, that can be an automatic decline. Okay, so these are very necessary things that a person would have to do. 411 is, I would say, list me, is about $300 a year. This is a service that we actually incorporate for our clients because, number one, we want to try to make sure that our business owners that we work with stay focused on what they're good at, which is running their business, doing what they do best. And all the other stuff that's very important too gets handled properly, so that when the time comes for them to push the button to get approved for a loan or a credit card, they're able to do that because everything that I'm talking about right now has been set in place. Does that make sense?
It does. Putting some thought into, what you're trying to do, not just, hey, I'm in business.
Yes, because a lot of people do that, and it might work for a lot of people, but it only works up to a certain point, especially if you are in a position where, let's say, you have a T-shirt or a marketing company, and someone says, hey, I love your work, you did this for somebody, and we need to set up an invoice with you to have this done for our company. And most of the time, these companies don't make payment in full up front. You normally have to foot the bill, send them an invoice, and then the invoice is not fulfilled until maybe 6 months to 12 months later. So in the meantime, in between time, you're the one that has to foot that bill. Okay, that's usually how it's done. So in that case, even with accounts receivables, or if you have, a merchant account, some people don't use merchant accounts. They're not, they haven't graduated to that level, or they never found a desire to, because they're using Square or PayPal swipe cards, all these little wonderful gadgets that they're, allowing us to have these days. But a Square account isn't a real merchant account. Okay, so these are types of, bank products that are available, But unless you are, educated as the business owner to make sure that you have all your I's and T's crossed, that's the difference between you getting funding and not getting funding. Okay? So with that being said, your 411 listing is important. Okay? That's just as important. Making sure that, okay, you listed yourself, but you listed yourself with your residential number. Okay? So we want to make sure people are doing the steps in the right order. Everything that I've talked about thus far is in order. Okay? So yeah, those are the things that, I would definitely say are just as important. And then as far as number 5 goes, it goes hand in hand with the phone number. Usually what I see a lot of times on even regular business cards or, on a flyer, you'll see the person says, contact me at Lisa at partygirlallnight@yahoo.com. And you can't have an email like that, okay? So you want to make sure that your emails are in sync with a website. And again, just like 411 listings are used to help the banks to make sure that you really truly exist. Because you got to remember, these people are people like us too. That means what? You would have to have a website, because if you have a website, then it should be Lisa at abcincorporated.com. Or, whatever the company's name is, .com or .org or whatever you are. So, again, the email directly reflects where you're parked at in cyberspace. So if you don't have a website, yes, that will be also a chance of you getting an automatic decline, because, again, like I said, these people are people just like you and I. They're at a bank working for a paycheck usually, and they only have so many, minutes to do the underwriting on your account. And if you're coming through with half behind stuff, I almost said another word because I'm married to a Marine, so he's all kind of vulgar language, but you want to make sure that it's complete. You want to present yourself in a complete fashion. So if you're missing stuff or you have stuff that's, submitted and it's not the right information that should be submitted, then that's an automatic decline. They don't have time to figure out why and when, and they're not going to call you and say, hey, by the way, do you have a better number or do you have a better address? They're not going to do it. It's just going to be an automatic decline. So the website has to be, a legitimate looking website also, because, there are services out here that allow you to do it yourself, and I'm all for do it yourself if you're good enough to do it, because there's certain things, I'm just not going to do, okay? I drive an SUV truck, and my husband has taught me how to change a tire, but because it's an SUV, I just don't feel as though I can move that truck. Somehow you put that tire iron on and you twist that bolt on and the whole car moves. I can't make my truck move, okay? I've stepped on it, I've jumped on it, it does not move for me. So I'm not going to feel that great about that tire being placed on if I had to change a tire. But, the point is that you can do it yourself as far as creating a website, but you better make sure that thing looks legit. It cannot look like your seventh grade, 6th grade level type of, graphics. You have to make sure that it looks decent, because again, you're saying that you are a legitimate company. So if it looks like somebody, like a kid, put it together, and I probably can't even say kids anymore, because kids are doing a really good job these days with all things social media related and creating websites. So, you might want to hire a kid maybe, but, the point I'm trying to make is that if you know you're not equipped to do it, don't try to, figure it out. Don't waste your time pulling your hair out. I mean, you and I talked about services like Fiverr and Upwork.com. These people are there that you pay them a few dollars and, of course, look at their work before you submit your money. But these are the type of things that can be the difference between you getting approved for some money and not getting approved, okay? So those first 5 things that I just mentioned, like I said, it is 10. In fact, we give our clients 27 checkpoints to make sure that their business is legitimately registered to be bankable. So, we're very thorough because, for the most part, when, my record right now is $5.3 million that I've helped my clients get on small business owners since January of this year. That's a little on a small number just because I lost my mom earlier this year, so I took a break for a couple months. But, the fact is that when we're trying to take our clients to the bank, we need to make sure that the ground foundation of the items that I just talked about are solid and in place and, up to date, and making sure that, everything that they have done is registered properly with the state. So even if, one of your listeners is like, hey, I already got my LLC, I have my name on my LLC, or my name is my business, I'm the sole prop of the partnership, what do I do from here? Well, I will say that, unless you are going to just spend hours and hours and hours of research to make sure that you have this thing right, then more power to you. But you and I both know that the most valuable thing in life is time. Once you never get it back. No matter how you look at it, you never get it back. So sometimes you just might need to delegate that to someone else who knows what they're doing, has been doing it for a long time. And whether you look at it as a cheap plug or not, it is my company that does that type of thing. And, I will say that, there are other companies out here that talk about building credit for your business or whatever. And, I will openly talk about Dun & Bradstreet. They offer a builder program. And the sad thing is that, they charge anywhere from $700 to maybe on a good day $2,200, depending on how they feel. Okay, they might charge those dollars, but the sad thing is that they're not building anything. Okay, and they're a sales business. They're into making people feel inadequate about their businesses. They'll try to send information to you, call you on your phone, especially when you start registering and changing things on your articles of incorporation, those type of things. That sets off a red flag for them, and it lets them know they need to contact you because they can get money from you by saying, hey, we found something really strange on your credit report. And, that should throw up a red flag for the business owner to say, well, if I just registered this company, how do I have something weird on my credit report? I just opened it, okay? So these are some of the things that we help guide and coach our clients along the process, because it is a very simple process. I know I said a mouthful, and I haven't even addressed all of the first 10 steps out of the 27 checkpoints, but the point of what I'm trying to make is that when we meet with our client, we're able to usually accomplish those goals within 3 business days to, if they're dragging their feet, maybe 2 weeks. Okay, and everything is done. Because the party doesn't start, Curtis, until you get funding. No one really cares about anything unless they can get money. Okay? So, yes, they know it's a necessary evil to get this done even. But, they're like, listen, when do I get funding? When can I run the credit report to see if we can get at least $5, right?
Who should be thinking about this? I want you to give out your information on how to get that checklist, but as if I'm listening to this and I'm a small business owner, who's your ideal person that you, not person, but, business that could benefit from starting out with you guys with a consultation?
Sure. Well, I want to start first by saying the person who is listening right now, who has that gut feeling that they need to reach out, that would be my first ideal person, because they have a drive, they have a goal, they're like fresh out of the water, they've been bathed in good information, and they know it, they can feel it in their gut. So I love talking to people like that. That's the first thing. But Curtis, my spectrum of clients are all over the place. I work with entertainers, I work with some people from the NFL. We're talking about doctors, chiropractors. So yes, those individuals we can help. And right now, Curtis, we usually have a one-on-one call. And I say usually because we give people a few options. I'm going to give that information at the end as to how they can, contact us. But, our company really wants to focus on what's good for the client. So if you are saying, I don't really have really much money on Almitra, I just need someone to just look at my profile and tell me what to do, or at least just communicate, just, how they say, send me a smoke signal, right? So we, in that sense, send a smoke signal by, just communicating with you through email. And so, we'll communicate through email if that's all they're able to do. Or if they want that one-on-one in-depth conversation with myself, they have that option to do a 60-minute, up to a 60-minute consult to go in depth on their situation and their situation only, not a general, platform of information, because no one really cares about the other person's fingerprint. If these are your fingerprints, we want to know, how do we address your fingerprint on this earth? So that's how we are able to, address how those services can work for them.
Okay, so that's great. So now, how would they get in touch with you? And also in the show notes, you'll see her link to her sites and her contact information. What we may do, as I'm hearing this, we may do a webinar that we'll post that will go into the some of the, so you can see some of this stuff, and then we'll record that, and you'll have access to a webinar. So we may do that. We will do that, actually.
No, we are going to do that. It's needed. It's very much needed. It's very much needed. In fact, you're going to hear, if I can just add, I've been working alongside with one of my colleagues who is at Citizens Bank. He's a corporate banker. And so looking at the climate of what's going on at the White House and all these other weird things that are going on in life with, the hurricanes and all these weird life situations that happen, because that's what life is all about. We are really keeping our ear to the street about how the banking industry climate is. And right now it is a little fickle. It's almost like the rules are almost changing like every 5 days. And, just speaking to my colleague at Citizens, he's like, it's changing every day, because you can learn so many products that are available, and it will be a 200-page manual. And then so many days out, they're like, oh, yeah, we're going to amend page 47 or, on the banking terms of this situation. So we are working together. We've been collabing, and some really good bank products that are coming out through Citizens. So I'm not, usually the one to talk about Citizens or any other bank for that matter, because someone's always going to dislike a company, because I have a very good professional relationship with this person. I like to help my clients. So I tend to work with bank products that help my clients, whether they are a good bank or, they've jacked themselves up like Wells Fargo has messed up twice in 1 year. Okay. But the point is that these are your, I would say, frenemies, because I know that your friends, don't pay a bill, they'll become your worst enemy. But, the point is, if there are good products out there, I'm usually the first one to know. And because of that, that relationship with Citizens, we're going to be doing some collabs with Citizens as well, because they have taken a look at our services as well. We've worked with some of the clients that they couldn't even bank. Okay. They got clients that they have on their book of business, and they're sending them to us saying, hey, can you do something with them? So we in turn help them get the funding, and we get creative financing going for those individuals to give them a breath of air. Most people just need to breathe. And, when they have that chance to just breathe, it makes more sense to them to make more investment in building their business profile. So yes, that webinar is definitely a necessary thing for us to do.
All right, well, we're going to do that. And so as we close, give them your contact information.
Yes. So if anyone that's listening right now, I would like them to text Curtis, that's CURTIS, at 215-645-7053. Again, that number that you're going to text Curtis to is 215-645-7053. And for those with the smartphones and all these nice little devices, you can go and visit us online. We're going to actually give you the opportunity of those one-on-ones as well as an email one-on-one at enforcedaccuracy.com. That's enforced with a D, accuracy.com. And if you want to get some more information about who we are, the name of our business is creditfitness.com. That's creditfitness.com. .co. We have like so many domains, but .co. And that way they can find us there. And you can just kind of read up on how we're able to provide coaching and consulting services, for your listeners that may have some challenges or major challenges with their personal credit. It doesn't matter. As long as you have the conversation with us, we will be able to show you how to get out of what you're in, or at least move into funding that you probably didn't even know existed. So I would definitely encourage your listeners to at least check out either site, but please land on the Enforced Accuracy site, which is our campaign that we're running for the last quarter of the year to help those individuals that want to help themselves.
Also, for your, let me add this. There, she does have a. We're talking about the business owners, but there are tools for improving personal credit. For some of you that haven't started your business yet, there are ways to do that. The thing is to, and she'll let you know when you compliment her. You can just reply in the emails of that you need help on both. Right? Most people do, but to the thing is, it all starts with having a good, strong personal finances. Just when you look at your personal FICO score, 2/3 of the score, debt ratio, and payment history are things that you can control, right? So 65% of that is you being a good steward of your money, right? And so you got to deal with that. I'm talking about this guy that he was like, yeah, I'm getting all these, he's developing all these corporations, these shell corporations, and trying to get business credit. I was like, all right, what the hell do you do? I mean, you don't have any revenue. You're trying to develop credit. Well, what do you sell? What are you doing? What are you doing to generate revenue? So this is not a game to do that. You need to be out there in the marketplace providing real value, because your income is a reflection of the value that you create in the marketplace. Okay, that's what drives revenue. You need to do that first.
That is the right path. All of our listeners should be listening. You should be listening, like really listening to what you just said. But what I will say is this, if you have a person that they're like, listen, I wanted to own a business, or I want to own a business, I want to start it, those want tos. For all my want tos, I'll just say this. Within the last 2 weeks of this month alone, I have been able to use 2 of these individuals' personal credit as their leverage to get them out there. They didn't have an EIN number, Curtis. Okay, they didn't even have their business name. They're like, so what should I call myself? I was like, we can talk about it, but I want to make sure you know exactly what the steps are. So to make a long story short, one of my clients actually was able to get $180,000 in unsecured credit for their business. Okay, and they didn't have the EIN number. So, of course, my staff was able to help them establish all of that together so that they could, release these cards to them. But, it was exciting for this person because they're like, I don't even have a business name, and you guys just gave me this money. So, yes, you should be out in the marketplace, but if you are a brand new startup, this is ideal. Or if you're in business and you have something to use as leverage to get you those cash cards, if I might add, most people are like looking for Visa, Master, Amex, Discover, all the cards that you would get for personal. So in the sense of using credit cards, most people would say, well, Curtis, it sounds good, but you just said that 65% of my score is based on my payment history with the debt to credit available. So if I go over 30% of my debt, that means my credit scores are jacked up, right? The answer is wrong, because on the business side, those factors do not compare to business credit at all. So because of that, the unsecured credit cards that we just released this year, I want to say in mid-April, these cards, we didn't know what to call them, but to call them hybrid cards, because the credit cards, most people know if I can just get the cash off the card, I can do some things, okay? So in this sense, the hybrid cards do just that. They act like credit lines. And most people in business say, I just want to get a credit line. I just need a credit line because why? They want cash. So because of that, these cards were created with that in mind, with that spirit, to be able to give the person the opportunity to, one, either swipe the card like a regular credit card, number 2, write a check on it, okay, or 3, remove or take all the cash off of the card and put it into, get it, business checking account. So they can actually have a $10 or $20 or $30,000 credit card limit and be able to remove or liquidate that card and put it into the business checking account of their choice and still pay what that amount is, like a credit line. So a credit line, you know how that goes. If the bank gives you $20,000, you have to pay on $20,000. So this is only what you use. So that's the beauty in these cards. And they give a nice little perk of 0% interest anywhere from 18 to 24 months, which I think is really delicious.
That's nice. All this stuff is incorporated, and so some of the things that we do is, where I want to help people make sure they're solid, but I want them to have access to it. And so again, what I try to do is to connect our clients with people that will help them in other areas as we begin to, grow and increase your net worth. And so in a world that is ruled by debt, you cannot be out. If there's no debt, there'd be no money because our dollar's debt. So you've got to learn, debt is a two-edged sword. So you have to learn how to manage debt, and with this, when I say good debt and bad debt, if you have to pay for it, it's bad debt. If it's real estate and a tenant's paying for it, or if your business is paying for it and I always tell people this, and as I close with this, you want to borrow money to make money, right? And don't borrow money for stuff. At least buy asset first, and that will pay you cash flow. And then you take that cash flow and you pay the loan with. But now and so it's just a whole philosophy behind that. So that's a whole other talk. So listen, I want to close with this. I want to basically say, listen, I'm excited. This has been a fantastic call. We probably need to show me that product when we hang up this call. And I want to thank you. So thank you for listening to the Practical Wealth Show. I want to thank Almitra for being our guest. You were fantastic.
You're welcome. My honor. It was my pleasure.
Make sure that you tell your friends about us. We're trying to kind of grow this, what I call this prosperity message, and talk about all things that create cash flow, wealth in your life. You guys have a great day, and we will talk to you next week.
Thanks for listening to Practical Wealth. To access the show notes and resources, go to practicalwealthshow.com. To get your questions on the show, go to practicalwealthshow.com. This show is for entertainment purposes only. Before you make any investment decisions, consult a professional. This show is copyrighted by Practical Wealth. Written permission must be granted before syndication or rebroadcasting.